big Boris Todbringer, the Grand Duke of Middenland, the Prince of Carraburg, beloved of Ulric, Boris the Bullet Dodger, or as we all prefer to know him as...
fucking Toddy!
Toddy's got a demo of his upcoming campaign for the End Times DLC at Gamescom this year, and we're going to go through it and see what's new. Starting off with his campaign effects, the Great Temple of Ulric. This is his campaign mechanics, we'll get to that in a minute. He starts with a legendary hero at his side, Emil Valgeir, a powerful supporting Ulric priest, and he gets slightly rank increased, slightly cheaper new Ulric units as well, and then his Eye for an Eye ability, a damage boost that also blinds the enemy, reducing some of their stats. Now I'm going to play the intro sequence because some of you might like to see it. If not, skip forward to this time.
The Empire is fraught with peril. Of its frontiers, none are as grim as the Drakwald forest. Boris Todbringer, Elector Count of Middenheim, takes to its dread as warrior and warden. Preyed upon for generations, his kin have dared only to endure. This will no longer stand. The tide of chaos will be met head-on, with blade and fervor. He vows to protect Ulric's sacred flame. Sworn to the wolf god, Middenland goes to war.
So, Boris, of course, starts up in Middenland, got a bunch of his new units. He's got Emil Valgeir at his side, who's giving off kind of dwarf vibes, but just without the dwarfism. Now, one of Boris's first mechanics is the Drakwald threat, represented by this little bar at the top of the screen. Now, how this works is that every turn there's a chance that a little beastmen herd will spawn, and if they do, there'll be a marker and you'll be able to do something about it before they cause too many problems. But the threat level will increase over time, and the higher the threat, the more tougher and bigger the armies are going to be, so you've got to stay on top of the goat and cow culling, basically. There are some decisions and events like this to deal with as well. So yeah, over the course of the campaign, you got to stay on top of the beastmen, otherwise they might stay on top of you and do some weird stuff. And eventually this mechanic will culminate in, of course, a showdown with the old One-Eye Kazrak, and that apparently will stop the Drakwald threat and stop the beastmen invasion, so you don't have to deal with this mechanic forever. Now to Boris's main mechanic, the Great Temple of Ulric. To understand this though, we must understand fervor, a currency Boris must gather through the usual means, buildings, battles, missions, etc. And there's a similar system to the dwarf grudges where you'll see a number above settlements and above armies, and that's how much fervor you'll get for defeating those. This one has quite a lot because it's a Festus army, a legendary lord, so there's kind of bounties on settlements and armies that can get you fervor, and that's the currency you're going to use to unlock and upgrade these various sanctuaries, which of course offer you all sorts of different buffs in different ways for both campaign side and armies. You will have certain requirements to hit before you can unlock sanctuaries or their upgrades, but all in all it's fairly straightforward, and the more and more sanctuaries you unlock, the more buffs you're going to get down here as well from the Sacred Flame. And there's actually another nice mechanic tied into this as well. If you construct the Statue of the Wolf, this will unlock the ability to instantly recruit Cult of Ulric units. You'll see an extra button down here on the army panel, and in there, that's where you'll be able to recruit your new Cult of Ulric units. Not only do you pay for them with fervor, so you don't need money, they'll also be recruited instantly as well. So they're kind of like regiments of renown in that way, which is very handy. Another place you'll be spending your fervor is in the Winter Rites. These are various buffs that can be upgraded as well, that help out your army in some way, so those should prove pretty handy if used in the right place at the right time. And for a little look at the new units themselves, this is Boris, of course, in all his ginger glory, an upgrade from the model he's had for many years before this. Now to stats and abilities, pause the video if you want to read anything. I'm going to move quite quickly. For Boris's stats, they're pretty chunky all across the board. Big melee attack, some weapon strength. It's not armor piercing though. Chunky charge bonus, however, going to be looking to get into the crowds rather than hunting down other single entities. This buff, Crush the Weak, is on all Ulric units. They'll get that as wavering enemy units are nearby. Emil Valgeir looking very fetching with his bright red horse and matching axe. He equally has lots of great stats all across the board, got armor piercing damage, got that frostbite on their magical attacks. And as mentioned, he is a support hero all in all, so he wants to work together with the troops to make use of all his good abilities here. So he's a pretty formidable powerhouse both on and off the battlefield. Now to the units, the Warriors of Ulric. These are a cheap infantry, a mere tier 1 unit, but they do have fairly sizable melee attack and a bonus versus infantry, so they should perform fairly well against other cheaper light infantry, but with low armor and low melee defense, don't expect too much. And then we've got the Wolfkin, coming in with the Rome 2 Swaby Wolf Warrior vibes. These are pretty similar to the last unit in that they're more of a damage dealer than anything else, and they do have frenzy and armor piercing damage, which is pretty huge, but again, lacking in the defenses, so don't expect them to last too long, but they should do a nice bit of damage, and they bring cheap armor piercing to the Empire frontline, which is pretty huge. Also ready to be an absolute game changer for the Empire frontline, the Todbringer Guard. As you can see, these are big, heavy, double-armed bastards, ready to cave some skulls off. Pretty big stats everywhere, got armor sundering on their melee attacks and armor piercing as well. Pretty slow though, at only 28 speed, but just an absolute beefcake of a unit, charge defense against all as well. So I think this unit is going to absolutely revolutionize the Empire frontline. Next to the cavalry department, the Knights of the White Wolf. These are obviously a big, heavy cav. They're actually a melee cavalry, so they're fine to stay in prolonged combat rather than a shock cavalry that wants to cycle charge and run away all the time. And their biggest sell is their armor-piercing damage. So quite simply, they're very similar to questing knights for Bretonnia. And again, it just fills a nice hole for the Empire to have a cheaper option for armor-piercing cavalry, because demigryphs are damn expensive. Alright, next. Doggos, aka the Hunting Hounds. These are pretty much the same as any other doggo unit in the game, nothing terribly special, just great anti-missile units, very quick, going to be good for chasing units down or chasing units off, should be very handy for the Empire. Another new cavalry unit I wasn't quite able to recruit in time, the Knights Panther. These are a shock cavalry that are quite similar to Reiksguard really, except they have a bonus versus large. So again, another nice new cheaper option for the Empire to have an anti-large cav that doesn't cost as much as demigryphs, albeit lacking in the armor piercing. I also spied Regiment of Renowned Hunting Hounds, their difference being that they cause fear, so really good on the rear charge. There's also the Fellwolf Brotherhood, Knights of the White Wolf. These, that melee questing knight type cavalry, they now have unyielding assault and rage like Norscan berserkers. And lastly, the Order of the Axe Todbringer Guard Raw. Their difference seems to be that they have a bonus versus infantry, so they're going to be a bit more specialized just for dealing with infantry. There's also this thing, a new magic chariot, sort of like the Wujing Compass for Cathay, the Celestial Hurricanum. Bringing mostly magical power to the battlefield. It's got a few bound spells, a Meteor Strike and Raging Tornado, so a bombardment and a direct damage spell, not a vortex as one might expect from a Raging Tornado, but both damage dealing spells. There's also Lightning Strike, which is a passive ability, so in theory it'll just shoot down lightning randomly around it. Hopefully not blowing up your own boys too much. A couple of buffs as well, melee attack there for nearby friendly units, power recharge as well. So a big powerful magical chariot thing for the Empire. But we're not done yet, there's also a new generic Lord option, the Seneschal, a large heavily armoured tough boy with big armour piercing weapon strength, some support abilities as well, and also a new generic hero, the Priest of Ulric. I managed to recruit one but wasn't able to use him properly, but he's got armor piercing damage and some nice combat stats, and he has the same battle prayer abilities as Emil Valgir. And lastly, a bunch of other random things I ran across in this demo. First of all, an anti-player bias slider at the start of your campaign. If you don't know what anti-player bias is, it's pretty much the thing in the game that tells the AI to kind of relentlessly go after you, maybe ignoring its other enemies, like walking across their territory to get to you, which makes no sense, right? They should just attack their nearest enemy. Well, this slider seems to make it so you can tone that down just a little bit, only by maybe 10%, or turn it up if you want some more challenge. But it's nice to have, I guess. There's also this new one, escalating character wounds. Basically, if your characters get injured by dying in battle or getting assassinated, their wound recovery time will go up, and if they get assassinated again, it'll go up even more, for example. So obviously going to be a pretty bad thing if it happens to you, but a good thing you can utilize against your enemies as well. If there's a particularly annoying lord or hero, just keep stabbing them up, keep assassinating them, keep beating them down, and they'll stay out the fight maybe a little bit longer. So a nice new little extra option anyway, nothing else new on this screen. I did spy a new Chaos unit, the Flayerkin, with their horrible metal flayer arms. They are a pretty low tier unit, not terribly tough or anything, but they're going to dish out some damage. They got that bonus versus infantry on there. They got Vanguard deployment, this mutant rage ability giving them missile resistance and their vigor back while they're under missile fire. That's pretty cool. They also have the rage ability and cause fear, which is going to be pretty dangerous in the early game, especially against these lower tier Empire units. So that's just a random new unit for the Chaos that I came across. And how about one for the Skaven as well? You thought there was nothing worse than a Skaven slave? Well, let me introduce you to Puss Bags. These horrible little blighters are, as their name suggests, ready to burst all over their enemies. Their stats are, as one might expect, pretty much god-awful, no armor at all. But that's how they want to be because their abilities are actually their big sell here. First of all, they do get some buffs while they're above 50% base health, but they actually take direct damage to themselves when they're in melee so that they'll die quicker. That's because of Pestilent Perfection, which will make them explode on death, giving nearby enemies the Contaminated debuff, reducing their leadership by 10, which is pretty huge. So yeah, a real throwaway unit, something akin to a bloated corpse, just charge it in and let it die. So potentially actually a pretty powerful unit with that leadership debuff, especially if you're flanked around on enemies and hit them with that -10 leadership from the back, plus attacked in the rear penalties. That'll have a lot of units running pretty quick. And yeah, there we go. That's pretty much everything I witnessed in this demo. If you've watched to the end of this video, I reward you with all of Boris's unique skills moused over for you to pause the video and read on if you wish. I'll do a meal as well. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I'll have a few more videos on this End Times DLC and the Gamescom demo over the coming week or two as we move towards the actual release of the DLC next month as well. I'll leave you with the skill points. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the Patreon or YouTube memberships. Otherwise, I thank you for watching. I will see you in the future.
Emil Valkyr!